Hidden Trails Motorsports, located right here in Charleston, West Virginia. They're our title sponsor, and they threw a nice little party for the crew. We are at the Pro Watercross National Championships. I'm Drew Goldfarb, back with you in the capital city. Just about time for another national championship race, and that means we want to take a look at the standings. And for that, we're going back upstairs to Don and Bill.
Here are your standings for Pro Runabout GP. In the lead, Dustin Farthing with 346 points. Again, Tim Ducat, 269 points, and Trey Frame in third with 267 points. Here's your lineup for Pro Runabout GP. Boat number 502, Brian Baldwin. Boat number 116, Dustin Farthing. Boat number 247, Dylan Osborn. Boat number 21, Trey Frame. And boat number 1, Cameron Frame. Boat number 35, Tim Ducat. Now let's head back down to you, Drew.
Let's take a closer look at our rider to watch for this race. It is Dustin Farthing, and he enters with an impressive resume, an 18-time national champion. He is currently your points leader in Pro Runabout GP, and this, his first year back on Factory Sea-Doo. His nickname is King D, so we'll see if King D can make it 19 national titles as we get set to race. Let's send it up to the booth. Here's Don and Bill.
Right up next to Trey Frame, and a great start from Dustin Farthing, and that is what he needed. And look at the power of Brian Baldwin as he picks up on that sweeper, and it looks like it's going to be Brian Baldwin that gets the HydroTurf hole shot. Boat number 502, the tweaker, the gentleman that has not able to do all of the national tour, but he came in with some great points. And I tell you what, look at how tight he turns this boat as they clock in at about 80 miles an hour, 83 miles an hour off of that backstretch. It is going to be Brian Baldwin on the inside split, and it looks like Trey Frame coming at it from the outside, another gentleman that has already taken a couple of tour stop wins, and he is putting the pressure on Dustin Farthing. It's going to be Dustin Farthing in second, Trey Frame in third. Meanwhile, all about the hole shot with Brian Baldwin. Let's take a quick look at this, because unbelievable how fast Brian Baldwin came out of that hole shot. Good start with Dustin Farthing. He had great reaction time, but Baldwin just hit the hammer. Look at him taking that sweeper, and he comes round, takes it, shuts the door on Dustin Farthing, and that is going to be the HydroTurf hole shot with Brian Baldwin.
And we're watching Brian coming through. He's laying it down really, really smooth, and I'm just amazed at how quickly he's getting that boat to turn.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting, as we came into this field about midway through the season, these boats were all smoking at about 90 miles an hour, and then suddenly midway through the tour, it seemed like one boat after the other started going down. And it actually started in Utah, of all crazy places, when with Dustin Farthing, the gentleman that coming into this with the points lead. He blew up one of his GP boats, had to go to a stock backer, and then on the next round, it was Trey Frame that was starting to have problems. He delaminated the side of his super boat, and then again came back out yesterday, and in the qualifying pretty much put his boat on fire.
Yeah, and you know, that's something we haven't seen for a long time, but as we're watching Brian come through the splits, it's one of those things where I just wonder what has changed within their camp, because they have done a lot and picked up
17 national and world titles, and he is on the clock right now to see if he can nail another one. Like I said, he came into this round, he had 18 races, 12 total wins, 17 podiums. That is an amazing amount of consistency.
And Brian knows who's coming up behind him.
Yeah, he certainly does. Brian, by the way, when you take a look at the statistics on him, he was only able to make 12 races this year, but of those, he had 2 wins and 8 podiums, so you can certainly see why he is going to be a force and definitely a threat.
And coming through the horseshoe, you can see how it's starting to get chopped up, and that's going to help Dustin to close a little bit as one of the back markers hops out of the way and lets the two run at it.
Yeah, that's part of the fun of watching the pros, is how they deal with lap traffic and how they're able to negotiate around it. The second thing that you talked about that I think is very important out here is this water starting to get chopped up as we go through this 10-minute moto. And as it does, that is going to be to Dustin's advantage if he can stay hooked up. Keep working clean lines like he's doing right now. He's on that outside split, and he's trying to reel in Brian Baldwin.
And you can see how close it is coming down the front straightaway. Brian's not backing off. Dustin's not backing off. This is a great race.
Yeah, it really is. Green flag still out there. Clean racing. Everybody looking good and a little bit wide as they came through the horseshoe. And the reason that Brian Baldwin went a little bit wide was he's trying to maintain that throttle as high as he can go.
And Dustin's still close by, trying to reel him in.
Again, the #1 rider, both 5:02. That's Brian Baldwin, Brian out of Catawba. And then in second place, it is Dustin Farthing, gentleman that owns Mountain Motorsports along with Ryan Hardwick. And that vote number's 116. So 5:02, Brian Baldwin taking the outside. Going to be Farthing going to the inside.
So a little change up as they're coming through the splits. You know, that's one of those things we don't see too often is once you have somebody that's up in the front, if they decide that inside split's fastest, they stick with it. But here they're switching back and forth. So, you know, it says a lot about the team that's put this together and keeping those splits even.
Do you think that's strategy, Bill?
I do think that's strategy.
I do too. Yeah, I think they're playing with each other. I really do. I think that Brian's being really smart, and he's going to see if he can get a little bit of Dustin's head, because he knows. He knows that Dustin's underpowered out here, and he realizes that this is going to be all about him if he can just keep that boat going. And that, I guess, is probably the downside to running the GP, right?
It definitely is. And, you know, one of the things that's playing right now, we've got some lap riders coming into play, and they have to look and see, you know, what split do I want to go through to make sure that I don't get caught behind maybe a slower rider that then allows the other to make up that extra ground.
All right, so as we look down at the flagging tower, you can see, we were talking about lapped riders, that blue and yellow flag indicates lap traffic, but the cross flags indicate halfway through this race. And as they're working their way through the lap traffic, that's got a factor for these guys as well. And Baldwin has got to get around Dylan Osborn, the gentleman on boat number 247, because he needs some clean water, and I believe that they have definitely gotten closer together. The top two riders, 5:02 and 1:16, very close together now, about a second and a half apart. Dustin Farthing came into this with 346 points. It's Tim Ducat with 269 points, a little bit further back on the lineup. Trey Frame with 267. Trey right now in third place has got a great opportunity to run up onto the podium. The big question is, does Brian Baldwin, with this win, will he be able to get enough points to move into the podium positions? He's currently off of that podium, but it's going to be Dustin Farthing. Whichever way you look at this, Dustin Farthing is definitely poised to take this national championship.
Indeed, unfortunately, with Brian having not hit some of those other races, it definitely puts him a little bit further down. But, you know, at the end of the day, Brian taking an overall win here will definitely boost him up, and we'll see what happens as far as can he make it onto the podium.
Yeah, the crazy thing was you look out on the track and you're going to see this. We have already seen Brian Baldwin and Dustin Farthing lap up to third place. So that is an incredible amount of work that these guys have been doing, just to give you an example of how fast they've been riding. Meanwhile, the gentleman that is back in fourth right now, that's Tim Ducat. He's actually riding borrowed property, Tim Ducat, on boat number 35. And the interesting thing about Dustin, by the way, he's actually donating all of his winnings for the 2016 tour to the Atlanta Children's Hospital, and that's been, as I recall, I think it's over $8,000 already. So
wow, that's awesome.
Pretty cool.
Really good.
All right, looking on the track, just taking a look at Dustin Farthing now. Again, still just hammering this thing, so right now, I think what we're going to do is just go down to Drew and go to the Waters line and catch up.
All right, well, thank you very much. I spoke with the chief meteorologist at the local CBS affiliate here to try to get a feel for what the river would be like, and he was telling me the current here at the Canal River flows to the west and was anticipating that the wind today would be coming from the west, and that clash of directions creates some added chop on the river, and I know that you know what that means. It can create a little bit of a tumultuous surface for these riders, and how does that impact the way that they are able to go full throttle? Do they have to back off just a little bit to deal with that?
Great feedback from Drew, and he's right. You know, I think it's an advantage for Dustin Farthing. I don't know that it's a big advantage necessarily for Brian Baldwin, although the great thing about Brian is he can ride anything, whether it's surf, flat water. He's just a very talented guy.
Very true, and of course both of these guys have a lot of experience. So as we prepare for the races, the same thing, these guys look and they check, you know, what is the current in the river going to do, and what are the wind conditions? But at the end of the day, once you get out there, you adjust as you have to.
Yeah, and I tell you, that makes a big difference. As you take a look, we've got the white flag out. This will be the last lap for Brian Baldwin. Boat number 502, and he has dominated this race. Look at Dustin Farthing, still trying to reel him in. Boat number 116 in second. The gentleman that is poised right now to take that national championship, still trying to reel Brian in, but you know what? It is not going to factor in the overall. Even if Baldwin takes this win, it'll help him make a bid for the podium. But either way, I do not think Dustin Farthing is going to be denied this national championship as we finalize coming into this split section. Which way does Brian go? Takes that inside.
And Dustin's on the outside. They're coming back down the line. We're going to see we've got 2 more buoys left. It looks pretty tight. Brian's coming off the inside split, Dustin off the outside split, and it looks like Brian's going to take the win for the day, but coming across the line, it's going to be Dustin for the national title.
Beautifully done. Dustin Farthing, we're going to catch up with him right after this.